This is the Blackwatch Report, the ultimate Path to Pro podcast, covering news around the scene, breaking down key matches, and interviewing your favorite players, coaches, and personalities from Contenders and Open Division. Now, here are your hosts, Thorn Rain and Kyle Wynn.
Break away from your normal energy. And
Oh, no, we're going to have to redo that one because that wasn't supposed to happen. So we're going to go back to starting soon.
Oh, it's the... All right. False start.
That was
penalty. Still the first time.
God, I don't know why that did that. It didn't do it on any of my previous tests. Don't get it. All right. Going to the intro in 5.
This is the Blackwatch Report, the ultimate Path to Pro podcast, covering news around the scene, breaking down key matches, and interviewing your favorite players, coaches, and personalities from Contenders and Open Division. Now, here are your hosts, Thorn Rain and Kyle Wynn.
And welcome back for another episode of the Blackwatch Report. I am your host, Thorn Rain, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Kyle Wynn. How you doing tonight, Kyle?
Fantastic. I'm really hoping that no one can hear the leaf blowers outside because I thought they were done this morning, but then they came back with a vengeance. So, it'll be okay, though.
You're sitting here talking about leaf blowers, and I'm talking about Arctic freezes.
Yes.
It's supposed to be insanely cold tomorrow. Like the warmest it is going to be is -3, with like an absolute bottom out of -35. So that's my Wednesday. It's gonna be a rough one. They've already canceled school for the next 2 days. They've canceled like garbage pickup, and I'm sure a bunch of other services will be canceled. So yeah, I love living in the frozen tundra north. But how has your week been, sir?
Man, it's been so dang busy. I've been doing a bunch of stuff at work, and then yesterday and today are my first days off in quite a while, so I've been doing not a whole lot, and it's been fantastic. I did with some of the local PC gaming enthusiasts, we did like a in-house kind of PUBG tournament thing, and we
Nice.
did 4 squads of 4. And our squad won. I got like 7 kills out of like a possible 16 I could have gotten total. So that was a fun game. I streamed that, and I've been trying to do a little bit more streaming and stuff like that. But other than that, not a ton. We're kind of in this nice, lovely like ramp down of all contender stuff until Overwatch League kicks off in like 2 weeks. So I am unbelievably hyped for that. What about you? What's been going on in your realm?
Realized that my Fridays are going to probably be forever spent at the local LAN center. My son played, they alternate weeks. 1 week is a solos tournament. The next week is a duos tournament for Fortnite. Two Fridays ago, he came in second behind Ghost Aiden. Won a nice pot, and then for the duos this past week, he took a buddy from school, and they ended up taking first place. So he's not doing too shabby. This Friday is another solos, so we'll be up there for that. And then Saturday, he actually got invited to be on a local team for Overwatch. So it'll be his first Overwatch LAN tournament this Saturday. So a lot of local tournaments that I'm going to and checking out with my son. So
nice.
Kind of cool. Other than that, like I said, I'm just trying not to freeze to death. But yeah, I think that's about everything. Just trying to stay warm. So we've got no new iTunes reviews. We do have 2 new Twitch followers. We have Yadir3224 and Player13. _1L2. So thank you for those follows on Twitch. Really do appreciate that. So that's going to take us down into the news. And as always, our news is brought to you by our Patreons. You can head over to the patreon.com/blackwatchreport. Become a Patreon and sponsor our news segment. So Kyle, why don't you start us off here on the scene news?
So, starting off, we have news that is good for other regions, the ones that we don't really focus on that much, and that is for the Chinese contenders regions. And that is that they have 3 new academy teams to be expected from all 3 of the new Chinese expansion teams for Overwatch League. That'll be Chengdu, Guangzhou, and Hangzhou. We know that Chengdu is being rebranded to LGE.Huya. And then Guangzhou Charge and Hangzhou Spark, I think we have a little bit more info on them in a little bit. So we have 4 teams total in 4 academy teams total in Chinese contenders, which is cool to see. And then we have a new one here. We're doubling EU now.
A new one. It's awesome. This was the one that everybody was like kind of hoping would actually get a team, and it's official. Paris Eternal GM Mex had announced that the organization is going to be jumping into contenders with an academy team for the 2019 season. He released this info on a AMA on Reddit just the other day, so really looking forward to seeing a top level contenders team kind of facing off against the British Hurricane. Granted, they haven't really done super well since season 1, but now it's going to give people over in EU another contenders team to root for.
Yep, and then last little bit here is Jane, who has been not single-handedly, but almost single-handedly supporting the entire Tier 3 of Overwatch on his back. Donated $1,800, if this number's correct, to the winners of Open Division in addition to whatever probably not as high prize pool as they got from the actual Open Division winnings. So
$50 Blizzard bucks.
Right. And so we also saw that himself, Lemon Kiwi and Avast and Hurix and ZP and bunch of other people ended up casting. They split the work with broadcast.gg, I believe, on what is his
ELO-Hell
Esports, that's what it is. And then they were kind of like splitting matches, so if someone did the losers bracket, they did the winners bracket, or vice versa. So we got to see lots and lots and lots of Open Division matches being streamed, which is awesome to see, as always. And yeah, Jane is continually like putting out tournaments for everything, for PC, Xbox, PlayStation, for NA, EU, while also teaching an Overwatch League or coaching an Overwatch League team and occasionally. So,
and cashing in those scrim bucks.
Yes, Papa Scrimbucks or Uncle Scrimbucks or whatever.
Yeah. But no, Jane is doing fantastic. Like, he created ELO-Hell specifically to kind of, promote the tournaments and do tournaments and what is it, the Tournament of Future Champions that he's going to be, continuing. He's not stopping. So thank you, Uncle Jane, for, supporting the Tier 3 and Tier 2 Overwatch. So that's it for the scene news. Let's get down into the roster news. Kyle, you got this first one here, and it's another sad one.
It's just Jur now. It's just Jur on XL2. They have released. We didn't know what they were doing, and now it's very clear that I don't think they know what they're doing either. Over in XL2 land. So we thought that they would be keeping TiZi and Woohyal as kind of a, hey, maybe you'll eventually want to move up into NYXL if they need the extra help, or maybe get a 2-way contract. Nope, they're dropped. TiZi and Woohyal officially LFT. Jur is the only one left on the team. I don't even know if Jur is the only one from New York or something. I don't think he is. I know he's...
It's super weird. That's all I know.
But it's literally just Jur, Wiz, who's the head coach, Adam, and John, who's assistant coach and player manager. So that's it.
Yep.
I don't really know I don't know what they're doing. I'm really curious as to where they're going to go. I'm really curious as to what the heck they're going to do, what XL2 does with this. I don't think they're going to be able to get playoffs again.
No.
Definitively.
I would not be shocked if we saw them in the first relegation trials for this season of Contenders. Like, it's going to be a rough one. But our next bit here, Kyle kind of alluded to it earlier. The Changdu Hunters have officially announced that they're teaming up with LinGan Esports to be their academy team, and they're going to operate under the new name LGE.Huya. Huya being I believe, the parent company for Changdu. So they're kind of tying both the academy team and the parent company into the name. You kind of see the weird naming with the Contenders teams. So congratulations to the LinGan Esports guys for, getting that fat payday.
So, kind of on a similar vein, we know that for sure LinGan Esports is now under ownership of the Changdu Hunters and Huya. Now, HongKong Attitude has announced that all of its players have been transferred to an Overwatch League organization. With all teams filled, this can only mean one of the two remaining teams, either Guangzhou or Hangzhou. Not really sure which one is which, but we know that they're probably on an academy team, which is good to see as well. I'm trying to remember if we have info on HongKong Attitude. I don't know any of these players, so it's not really that important, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know enough about HongKong Attitude to really back anything up. But it is good to see. I believe they're all in HongKong Attitude is in the Pacific Division.
Yeah, I think they're Pacific Division. Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's going to be kind of a question on whether or not are they going to stay in the Pacific Division.
I don't think they can. I think that they have to go to the Chinese division.
Now, the question there is how do you determine nationality according to the new region locking?
I have no idea, because I know that I don't know. No, I know that Hong Kong is like almost China, basically China, but not exactly China. There's just a bunch of weird things that I'm not gonna have to worry myself about, because there's someone at Blizzard who probably gets paid full-time hours to literally just solve that problem. So
yeah,
good luck to them, because this is confusing thinking about that. If you have players from Taiwan / Chinese Taipei or Hong Kong or China, like which is it Pacific or is it China? Like, I'm really curious as to how that works, but that's their problem, not my problem.
It almost seems like Pacific and like the Chinese region could almost have interchangeable players, but that actually is kind of an interesting thing. Maybe I'll tweet somebody. I doubt I'll get an answer, but that's something that I would like to find out. Kind of tying directly into that announcement, it was later announced, Halo of Thoughts actually tweeted this out, that in order to keep the team together, HongKong Attitude transferred the whole team fee free. So HongKong Attitude got no transfer fees for this, because it was rumored that the Overwatch League team that was picking up the players only wanted certain players. HongKong Attitude wanted them to stay together, so they said we would release them all to you for a cost of nothing. And they bit. So congratulations to the players, and like super cool on HongKong Attitude's part to do that, to keep the team together. We see that, I mean, that's twice now three times that we've seen it, like a Contenders level team kind of pushes for the whole team to get picked up. Runaway did it, and now HongKong Attitude. I want to say there was somebody else, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
The next closest we had was that Eagle Gaming was doing 0 buyouts for their players, but that was due to other financial reasonings that we got into pretty in depth on a previous episode.
That was more of a scumbaggy thing. I hope this one doesn't turn out to be scumbaggy.
I don't think so.
But I don't think so.
If nothing else, too, now that they are under the Chengdu Hunters, then it's better off that now they have lots of support. They have lots of you have an org to blame, and an org that now is Overwatch League tied, so now they are very well incentivized to do well on their players' behalf. So I'm not worried about it. What I am worried about, though, is what the heck Tonic and Networks are going to do, because they are both the main tank players who have left Young and Beautiful. Young and Beautiful now don't have tanks at all. They have Graceful and Tsuna as DPS, Danny as off tank, Ding and Gustav as their support duo. But now they had 2 main tanks, and now they're both gone. So I don't think that this is. I think they were. It seems like they were dropped, not left, because they both departed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that just makes sense to me.
Yep.
But I don't know for sure. I can't say with definitive answers.
Yeah. And then kind of, continuing with the roster announcements here, T-Tuba is the last remaining member from the Season 3 roster for MVP space. And he just left the team. So now the team only has 5 players. MVP space is going to be Henji, Jesper, Dukdu, Finn, and Frobby. So that they're one short. Expect to see somebody coming in. But now the Season 3 MVP space is no more. They have all left the team.
And then more Korean Overwatch talk. We have a new roster from Blossom. New is Swan SWAN, Yahoo, and a new coach in Kong. Remaining is Illicit, Lip, Sia, Dotori, and Swoon. That's annoying. There's Swoon, SWOON, Swan, SWAN, head coach Spawn. Meanwhile, Swan is now on Florida Mayhem. Oh my goodness. That's a lot of swoon, swan, swang, swung similarities here.
That's gonna be fun listening to the casters try to keep the difference between Swan and Swoon.
Best of luck, Achilles and Wolf.
Yes. Go ahead.
It's you. Sorry. No, go ahead. It's you.
So we're going back to our favorite Korean team, Changdu. No, Team Griffin. I'm sorry. But
Team Peter Griffin.
Yeah. Oh man, we need that meme made. Just a Peter Griffin body with their new weird bird logo on it. That's fantastic. But they have released their roster for 2019 contenders, and yeah, I'm gonna attempt this name here. Choi Schwan, Merritt, Selly are all on the DPS. Celestian and Kalios coming over on off tank. And then we've got Evo and True on tank. And then we have Agatha on the flex support, Chio on support, along with Kostos and Shine. So that's a pretty deep roster going into contenders. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I believe you're only allowed to have 9?
That was 8.
8. It is 8. That is right. They dropped it. So they're currently sitting at 3 over on their roster. Should be pretty interesting to see who we either see shuffle around or get dropped. But that is your new Team Griffin roster going into 2019.
So here, last little bit of news here is another one bites the dust out of the definitively most successful South American contenders team. That is the former Brazil gaming house, now known as the Based Tryhards. Calero has officially announced his retirement from Overwatch. I mean, it's not a surprise that South America has the least amount of money despite having pretty good viewership in both Spanish, English, and Portuguese casts. I think that there was another player who also left, but I can't figure out.
It was just last week.
Muritz or something like that, I think it was. Muriz or Muritz or whoever. So, the most successful team is now becoming less and less successful as their players continue to leave after not getting any money or any significant money to continue playing. Only successful player we saw was Alamau. Move up to Boston, so
and oh man, the Farah player,
Oh, I don't know.
Oh god, I can't remember his name now.
Lico? No.
No. Jeez, it's on the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me in the middle of one of our other segments. I just know it will. But another thing to note about South America is it's the only region that hasn't had any lands. Every other region has had some form of land. So just really zero support going down to South America. Hopefully we see that change with the new structure of 2019, because they said that they're gonna reshuffle the way the money is spent. But it is what it is. But that's going to wrap it up for our news. And we got something new here. So we'll be back in just a second.
Break away from your normal energy and go rogue. Head over to the rogueenergy.com and use promo code BlackwatchReport at checkout for 10% off of your purchase.
And that takes us into this week in Overwatch, brought to you by Liquipedia. After this week, I think that I'm going to just drop the birthdays, because they're kind of a pain. Because some of them have retired, some of them have stopped playing, and I have no way of
people who I just do not recognize.
And then there's this week, and this is the week that made me decide to do it, because there's a lot of birthdays here. So I will continue to do this week in Overwatch just for the trivia and tournament sections, but let's get into our final week of birthdays. So we see this week's birthday is going to be Nox, Mary King 8, Zachary, Numlocked, Janice, Naga, Special Kid, Dio, Render, MKL, Marblu, Fielder, Hammerkick, God V, Kaiser, Tyrong, Sparky, Wisu, Daco, Illicit, Coach 815, and Panker, all with birthdays this week. So happy birthday, everybody. And surprisingly enough, that was probably the easiest list I've ever had to read. No trivia. We did have one tournament back on January 28th of 2017. That was the Winter Overwatch Premiere, and that was won by Immortals, now your LA Valiant. So that's going to kick us down into the quick play. Kyle, you got a big old write-up on the NetEase Esports X Tournament, the next cup. Why don't you take this away? I'll kick it off by saying this was Runaway versus LGD Gaming. It went the way of Runaway 4-1. So what's your take on this matchup?
So again, we're doing this new formatting of tournament breakdowns here. We have kind of the preamble section of, okay, this was a best of 7. So it wasn't a like first to 4 or anything like that. It's just a best of 7. Runaway was coming into this as the Contenders champions, and in semifinals they 3-0'd Fly Gaming, who I think was the previous Contenders or China winners. LGD Gaming got knocked out in Contender semifinals and barely beat T1W Esports in this tournament semifinals. And then heading on into Busan, they looked like definitively the better team here. A lot of people expected this to go the way of Runaway. It would have been considered an upset if LGD won this. And it was looking like it was going to be that way, at least from the first map, until the Monkey Prince reminded us that in a lot of tournaments in the past, it has been the thing where the Chinese teams took the first map off of the Korean teams, and then after that it went completely the other way. We saw QOQ again do incredible work here. I think it was you brought it up that last in Korean Contenders Finals, it seemed like no one had gotten like any grabs eaten.
Yep.
And now we have a couple. We have QOQ eating lots and lots and lots. Hollywood. Okay, so Busan went 2-1 the way of LGD Gaming. Then here's where it kind of got turned around. Hollywood was a roll. So Runaway capped all 3 points with 4 minutes and 14 seconds left in the time bank. Very often teams do not finish Hollywood.
No.
You often will get stopped like 5-10 meters before the end. Or get stopped for second.
Or just completely full held. We see that a lot on Hollywood.
Exactly. And we will see that a little bit more here too, because that's what the 0 in 3-0 comes from. LGD got completely full held. Mag gets a fantastic shatter he was up in the, I don't know what that place is called. It's not like the movie theater, but it's like outside on the streets out of the movie theater. I think it's like a hotel or something.
Like the balcony up top?
Yeah, the balcony from like the top rope hits a flanking shatter and like destroys their final push, so they don't have an actual final push. Tankui, who's the main tank for LGD, has always been like hyper aggressive and will get like a pick or two, but then, or actually will usually just kill Mag, but then the rest of his team is really having an issue following up. So we're kind of seeing a lot of issues that we saw with teams like Mayhem Academy, who had that like main tank who's just like always at 100, but then the rest of the team is like at like 70, and they're like, oh, let's wait a second, and like, I've already gotten a kill, and like, oh crap, oh, you're already dead, sorry, and then it just fell apart. But after the full held, LGD takes it to Gibraltar, where it goes 3-2 in Runaway's favor. Hisu brings out the Widow on defense, which is the first time we haven't seen him locked away on, I think he's the Brig player. I'm not super familiar on Runaway. LGD really have an issue getting in without getting picked. I think it was like 3 or 4 fights where he's just getting picked nonstop. And then Runaway looked to kind of get a little overconfident with it. Get picked here and there. And then the fight kind of goes back into LGD's favor, and then QOQ bombs. Always consistent, always there for you when you need them. Not always like 4 or 5 Ks, but always like 2 Ks, and very often it's all you need in a GOATS team fight to really swing things around. Next up, Volskaya. I haven't seen Volskaya in a long time. I think we saw it a little bit in the World Cup.
Yep.
I don't miss playing it, that's for dang sure, but I do miss I definitely do miss seeing it. It's an interesting map to pick, especially on A. You get to see some interesting comps, like the 4 DPS that LGD brought out. Rookie, who is I think the Diva player for LGD, got like nonstop dunked on by all of Runaway. Never had an opportunity to do anything on Tracer. LGD bring out the Ash Mercy defense, but interestingly enough, Shui brings out the Pharah, which is, you would think, going to get hard countered by the Ash Mercy, who can one-shot headshot, I think, every 250 HP target. And they also, like, that was just interesting to see. I think Runaway did also bring out the 4 DPS on their attack. And then LGD take first and most of second. With only a minute, which is pretty good to see, but then Runaway is able to get both of them pretty handedly. Finally, bringing us to Lijiang Tower, where Runaway take it with a pretty clean 2-0. Shousheng brings out Doomfist and gets a pick on Gardens, but Lijiang boops basically everyone off of the edge. And then it seems like they don't actually have like a fight from there. It just seems like they're kind of always coming in, getting picked, resetting, coming in, getting picked, resetting. And then Rookie, who was getting dunked on Tracer, and now on Zarya 2, throws away some grabs, doesn't do a whole lot for them, giving Runaway the 4-1.
Just seeing a runaway by Team Runaway with all of these tournaments. They're just, man, the Korean finals were, pretty handily, taken care of, and then it seems that the next cup just straight up, you know what, we'll give you that one at the start, and then we'll just finish it out real quick. But that wraps up the NetEase Esports X tournament. I like saying the full name. Next Cup sounds cool, but NetEase is just out there buying everyone and producing games everywhere. It's crazy. Just looking at NetEase and what they're doing, it's insane. So that takes us into the NA Open Division playoffs. We're not going to break down the whole bracket. I'm just going to give you your top 6 teams that are moving on into trials. We still have no trials information other than who is going to be moving on. So we're going to see, just squeaking in, Underwater Squad and Triumph. Both of them are just making it in the 5th and 6th spots, followed by Chicken Contendies, Alpha Gaming, Path to Poverty, and Mirage Esports Electronique. Mirage and Path to actually really difficult to say. Path to Poverty, going at it a full 7 series in the finals. It was actually really fun to watch. I was popping in and out on that one. Path to Poverty did not lose a match all the way down to the finals. Mirage got knocked down into the losers bracket in the semifinals, won their way back out, and then ended up just having a fantastic showing. Mangachu showing out on his characters. Really, really good. I've been talking about Mirage since back before Contender or Open Division like tied into Contenders. So to see them finally get up to this point is really, really cool.
So one of the couple things I wanted to talk about is there's a couple of interesting teams here, or a couple players on these teams that we should note here. Underwater Squad is the team with Kevin, who was on the World Cup team for Canada, didn't see play, but was on the team. Leafa, Derek, Thailand Baboon, Icy, a lot of pretty popular names there. Triumph is the other team at the bottom there, has Coach Milo, who used to play on Luminosity, which was Seagull's old team with Gods and all them. PB Mitsu on the DPS and Shurshoy, our favorite main tank player. Chicken Contendies is Harblue's team with Tanner, Suppose, and a couple other people I've never heard of. Alpha Gaming, I don't think there's anyone we know.
I've never heard. I had to look into Alpha Gaming because they were just dunking on people. I go and look them up.
Alpha Gaming and Path to Poverty are two teams that don't really have any names that we know on them, but they're both doing really well. And then it should be noted that Mirage Esports Electronic got a little bit of a boost, when they got newly free agented Mangachu to round out that DPS line. And he's kind of good at some stuff, and he was on like the second best Contenders team for like 3 seasons. So he would probably do pretty well in Open Division, and he did, and that's why they're first.
And I know, especially in the Discord, I'm looking at you, Mr. McBeardy Face. There's some people that have some issues with Contenders level players being signed to an Open Division team right before playoffs. Something to note here for Mirage Sport. Yes, they signed, or they brought on Mangachu right before the playoffs. It was actually, I believe he played 2 or 3 games prior to the playoffs, but that is because Wub was actually released.
Likely poached. I think so I don't know who posted it, but I saw someone commented saying it was like,
I came across it on Reddit. Wub had said on his stream that he was signed to a Contenders academy team, a new academy team.
So it's likely the Toronto. Our speculation is that it's the Toronto team that is now first gen, which is interesting.
Yes, because first gen just did a huge like call to tryouts. They put out an application.
Right.
So it's really looking like we may have nailed this one. It might not be the first gen brand that actually got picked up, but the first gen team.
I think it's a chunk of it. I wouldn't be surprised if they hybrided it. I would think that'd be the way to do it. You bring in like Nomi and Tensa maybe, and then you bring in Wub, and then you get the guys from Second Wind. That would be kind of cool to see.
Yep.
I don't know who you'd bring in. Maybe Mirror and Fried and stuff like that. That'd be an interesting roster to see.
Yeah, they could make a really insane roster for that. So what, like when we talk about an Open Division team picked up Mangachu and put him on, it was replacing Wub. And like Wub's not a scrub.
No.
Not in the least bit if you've ever watched him play. He's a phenomenal player, comparable on some roles I would say that Megachu probably beats him out on Pharah and Torbjorn very easily. But it wasn't like they picked Mangachu up at the end of like the season just to like, you know, pull
Just
in
to
a ringer.
own everyone in
It
in
was
finals.
it was a comparable trade. So
right.
don't give the guys that much flack for it.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the last little bit of our Open Division playoffs talk, which is going to get us into the main discussion. So we're going to talk about the Overwatch World Cup, why it might go away, and why that's not a bad thing. I believe we both are on the same ground that maybe it's time for the World Cup to just kind of say we're retiring.
Yeah.
So Kyle, why don't you start us off here, and
So-
we'll just kind of feed off of each other.
Yeah, I want to like set the scene a little bit here because what we know is that the Overwatch League regular season ends July 28th, and that's just the regular season. We saw there was like a 2 to 3 week break between regular season and playoffs, and then a 1 week break between playoffs and finals. So that's like a month for playoffs at least.
And
So
you got to take into
ahead.
consideration that this playoffs is actually going to be, what is it, 12 teams? It's
12 teams, plus you have the play-in tournament at the end as well.
Yeah, so
That's like a month, almost maybe 2 months worth of playoffs.
Yeah.
Which will put the end in like late August, maybe even edging on into September. We saw that the first qualifier for the Overwatch World Cup was in Incheon in Korea. That was mid-August, like the 15th, 16th. So if you're going to have the World Cup again for 2019, it dang sure isn't going to be 4 group stages, split off, and then finally, you know, the apex being at BlizzCon. Then, like, so we would just have playoffs. We would be like season 1, where it's just like invited teams into BlizzCon, no group stages or whatever. Seems unlikely, but possible. And then kind of what I wanted to talk about was like, why do we have the World Cup in the first place? Let me kind of backtrack everyone. Hop in your DeLoreans and let's go back 2-3 years here to the weird place that was Overwatch Esports before Overwatch League was announced. And that we had a couple of orgs in. You had your Envy and your Cloud9s,
LG
and
Evil,
LGs, and FaZe and all those, Rogue and Misfits.
Renegades.
That was, yep, they were there too. And it seemed pretty clear that Blizzard was not super keen on maintaining that scene. That's kind of how it is for all their other games, that they have kind of these endemic orgs running things, and you have Blizzard helps on a couple of tournaments here and there, but they have other ones, you know, your E-Leagues and your ESLs and all that kind of stuff handling other things. This was the first time that we did World Cup, was the first time when Overwatch League was announced, I believe. And so it was very clear that like World Cup was there because you needed to have something, because Overwatch is a huge esport at the time. It's like starting to really get to the point where teams are getting serious and we're recognizing who the good players are and stuff like that. But it would be kind of a dumb idea for them to do a tournament with these endemic org teams that are now going to drop out and not mean anything. We looked at what happened to Rogue. They're gone. FaZe gone. There's a couple still in, but like most of them have left. And so, okay, why not throw it in and do like a national tournament? Because it's kind of easier to do. You don't need org support as much. Blizzard can kind of just run things the way they want to run things. If you want to take the second part, I don't want to like talk forever on this and not give you too much chance.
And kind of to that, I think possibly their thought, like that's a huge undertaking to do like a national, like we're doing national teams. in theory, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But in practice, when you're trying to feed into a league and it's basically just a glorified show match, probably not the greatest idea. So we're going into that it showed to be a decent place to find new talent. We saw a little bit like Fusions getting picked up and brought over to Boston, and Funny Astro. So there are names that were pulled out of the World Cup that typically are in kind of the rougher regions. You got your EQO, Mickey, and Trill all getting brought in after their performances from the World Cup. But then, outside of getting those like diamonds in the roughs, like what are you left with? You're left with a team that's put together and given like 2 months to try to get chemistry to win a tournament. Yeah, there's a decent amount of money and then bragging rights, but in the end, it doesn't hold any real merit. Once you're off, once that team dissolves, the next team is put together by a whole new group of people. There's no lasting sustainability with the teams or the anything surrounding them.
Right. And kind of the last like positive note here is that we did see it gave us a good chance to kind of, and I think this was really beneficial for Blizzard too, because what this did is it let them test the idea of localization. It said, okay, well, listen, if we can make people cheer for players that they don't really know too much about because, hey, they are from the same country as I'm from, and they can have absolutely dedicated fans based on that. Looking at you, Australia and France in particular, who had probably the two most involved fan bases we've seen in terms of just pure participation and volume in both noise and in presence at the stadium. It shows that it's beneficial. If you make a team in Paris now, it will have probably a pretty dedicated fan base in Paris and around that general area. But we kind of touched on a little bit, but I want to kind of get deep into it point by point here. Why is this system outdated? It worked for season 1 and kind of season 2 because season 2 or year 2, which was 2017.
Yes.
It was a little bit weird because Overwatch League was coming. It was like on the cusp. And so there were no actual teams left really. Is either we know who's going to OWL or people are still like, I don't really know yet. And so that was a really good chance to just have like a player showcase. To say like, hey, I'm still here. I'm pretty good. That was mainly for like EQO. That was really, really helpful because that's kind of what got him the spot on Philly. I think that, and he trialed well, of course. But you mentioned this a little bit previously, is that the teams are not good. Like you have a bunch of random teams from random countries. Some of them will have one good player.
Unless you're Korea, who specifically goes out and do it the right way, and they pick like half of a full team and then fill it with all-stars. But then you go into the other regions and you get Austria.
Yes. And another point here too, you'll have like, look at Thailand. Like Mickey is a pro level player. He's not like the most fantastic Overwatch League pro ever. He's not number 3 diva in the world, but he's Overwatch League caliber. I think everyone can kind of agree on that. And he's playing on a team with a bunch of players who are definitively not as good as him. Potifan was doing pretty good for group stages and stuff like that, but it just wasn't enough. And so we saw that kind of happen where there was like a Overwatch League player stuck on kind of a team. But then you also had just purely awful teams of Poland, Spain, Hong Kong, Switzerland, and Spain had pro players on it too.
Yep, pro players.
All went 0-5. Hong Kong didn't win a single map, and they have that was the entirety of the HongKong Attitude as well. And so you're not reaching peak performances here. You're not reaching like I guess once you get to the playoffs, it gets pretty close. Like we can agree that China versus South Korea was like pretty good.
Yep.
Like those teams by themselves will probably maybe make playoffs in Overwatch League if you think about it like that. Maybe.
And
But the other thing I want to talk, or go ahead.
I was going to say, like, for this, because it's region locked and you have to pull players from your region,
Mm-hmm.
you're really restricted on team building. So that's how we end up with a whole team of people we've never heard of, who've never played on a stage, never played in a even semi live environment. You know, most of them don't even stream. I think the way Blizzard picked the teams to go and compete in the group stages was their biggest flaw. And it was just based off of the top 16 regions with the highest SRs. And then there was the 4 invited who were going to be the host regions. Just because you have high SRs doesn't mean that you have like professional play. We've seen this happen in Contenders. You know, people come in, and when you start playing in a professional sense, your gameplay has to change. So kind of tossing it back up a little bit, maybe we do see them go back to an invite, and they just invite out of the region, like 2 teams out of the regions that currently house Overwatch League team. I really think their biggest flaw was that SR, like,
that was a weird system.
It was super weird.
Well, because we saw in the first time they did it in 2016, we saw there was invited teams from like the obvious places. Russia had a ton of good players.
Yep.
Finland, Sweden, Spain at the time was a little bit better, I guess. US, Canada, South Korea, China. Those all made sense. And then Europe was a little bit weirder, and so you had like an online play-in tournament, which was interesting to see. Obviously, that was plagued with the fact that you had fan voting, which was awful because you had, you know, a 5/6 pro team, but then you had like Stir in on the USA team, he's pretty good, but he's not Overwatch League caliber. He's not, you know,
you voted
pro caliber.
Some places voted in players, like actual players off of teams, and then other places voted in personalities.
Like you had Huck on the Team Canada team and Poke on the Team Canada. Like that's just there's so many weird things there.
So so far, like all of their systems to get the teams have been super awkward, and I think that's kind of what started the downfall, is just the way they picked the team to start off. So you were on to the next bit, or
so this is we kind of touched on it a little bit. So like looking at like Zachary as an anecdote here, right?
Yep.
This was Zachary's chance, kind of. Like obviously he had phenomenal performances, but like only us and our listener base and the 5,000-ish people who watch Contenders
know how good he is.
Recognize that he is a good player.
Yep.
3 seasons in a row he put up, or I guess 2 seasons in a row, he put up really good performances. Won the championship, went undefeated with his team, went to World Cup. Team did pretty well in group stages. He didn't play a ton though because he was busy with Fusion University at the time.
Yep.
Then when it comes to finals or the playoff stages, then things kind of fall apart for him. He doesn't look so good now. People are rating him as an awful player. Meanwhile, you have. Do you think like Muma cared about this game?
No.
Do you think Muma, like, besides like maybe just staying warm and saving face of not like losing, do you think that like, you know, Hydration cared that much, or Sinatra cared that much, or Moth? Like, no. They have a full-time job doing Overwatch League. They're getting paid $50,000 at least to play on an actual skilled team. This is kind of just for glory, I guess.
Like,
and
the Overwatch League has the All-Star break. Yes.
Right.
Like, but this is like the national All-Star break. Like, you could almost say that the All-Star break and this are almost the same thing, except this includes people not in Overwatch League. That's the only difference. Yeah. So, to anybody in the Overwatch League, this is just a giant glorified show match. This is to have fun. try wacky combinations. Like we saw some really strange stuff coming
Agility's
out of
Lucio and things like that.
like
But then you also, with that, had Fusions who was playing out of his mind because he was on a roster that was not going to get picked up by Overwatch League teams because it was the academy team for an all Korean speaking roster who clearly didn't need to pick up that many players in the first place, especially a main tank.
Yep.
And so this was like his chance to shine. And so it's unfair to Contenders players and Overwatch League players because the level of interest is not the same. It's weird to spend 8 months really talking about Overwatch League and kind of Contenders for a little bit, and then like, okay, national teams time for like 2, 3, 4 months. It's not the same. There's like a lack of cohesion there. It would be nice to be able to see players play on the same teams for as long as they're on that team and not have like play, okay, now you're on this other separate little team for a little bit. The other thing of like really what started this is we talked about it last week or the week before. Interregional competition is now no longer limited to Overwatch League and World Cup.
Yes.
We have Atlantic Showdown, Pacific Showdown or Championship, the Gauntlet, which is all of them. It's basically World Cup, but for
non-Overwatch League teams.
Actual good Contenders teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to fill the same role, but with more established, more skilled, more practiced teams. I guess more skilled in that if you ignore the Overwatch League players.
Yeah. And it's going to be on LAN, so it's not like you're having an NA team face off against a Korean team, where it's hosted on NA for one series and then hosted on like no, we
between
get
map switching servers and crap like that.
Yeah.
Where one person's playing on 200 ping, the other person's playing on 200 ping, and big surprise, they lose maps when you're on 200 ping, like stuff like that. And then, kind of coming to the summer here because we're getting pretty close to time here, so it's pretty well timed. What fills that void? So if in the off chance, I mean, it's not even off chance. It looks more and more likely that it's becoming antiquated or it's going to go away. What takes the spot of the World Cup? I initially thought, okay, well, when's the Gauntlet gonna be? Is that like, that would be a great thing to see on BlizzCon. Like that would be awesome. Because I mean, what you have, all of the teams are gonna be there likely. That is the best time to scout. Are you kidding me? Like, you send your scouts to the Gauntlet if you're an Overwatch League team, and you will come away with a fatty list of great players from every region. You'll have probably a South American team, maybe if they're good enough. You'll have, Pacific teams, Australian teams, Chinese, Korean, EU, NA. You will have every good team here. That would be a phenomenal opportunity to see at BlizzCon. It's probably not likely going to happen this time.
But what if? Just what if? Because we know that the Atlantic Showdown and the Pacific Showdown are just for those separate divisions.
Right.
And then the Gauntlet is the best of those two showdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't there be a fourth one that's not announced yet?
I think because that's what the Gauntlet is. Like, the Gauntlet is the finale. The Gauntlet is who is the best Contenders team in the world. I think that, like, you can't have anything beyond that would be like Gauntlet Part 2, which would feel tacked on or would be in a weird spot, I think. And especially because it's, like, less than a month before BlizzCon 2. That's a weird timing as well.
True.
Next one is, like, what about All-Star Game? We saw that kind of weirdly tacked on at the end of the first Overwatch League season.
Yep.
Well, we know definitively it's not going to be that way because Stage 2 and Stage 3, in that gap, is going to be like a 1 month break or 3 week break or whatever. We're going to have the All-Star Game. But we still need something at BlizzCon, so now we can maybe throw it into community intel. I'm really curious to see. We haven't done community intel in a hot minute, so why don't we get? I'd love to hear some feedback on Twitter or in Discord or however you get back to us. What Do you think, okay, first off, do you think Overwatch World Cup is done? Do you think that maybe we'll have one more year of it this year and then it's dead after? And if it does die, what do you think would take its place? What do you think would be good? Um, what else could they do? Would they do Overwatch League stuff at BlizzCon? I don't know. It's weird. It's like there's a very clear void if Overwatch League World Cup goes out.
And BlizzCon is like the crown of the Blizzard year. Like that's where a lot of the big stuff. Yeah, the HCT, the Hearthstone Championship doesn't end there, but there's still a big tournament there.
Right.
There's StarCraft tournaments. There's Heroes of the Storm tournaments. Maybe.
WoW Arena stuff.
Yeah, there's WoW Arena. There's the Mythic Dungeon Invitational is held there. So there's always some sort of an alive event.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to leave out what is now their second largest like franchise behind World of Warcraft. They're not.
Yep.
There's going to be a live event. But what is it? That's what we want to try to figure out. So maybe we get some ideas from the community and see what you guys think. I'm digging it. So I think that is all of it for us tonight. So as always, Twitch followers, if you're an audio listener, swing by the Twitch, create a free account. It's absolutely free. Hit that follow button. We do appreciate it. We shout out all of our followers on the show. If you're feeling a little froggy and you want to financially support the show, you can support the show by either subscribing on Twitch, or you can swing by the Patreon, which I mentioned earlier, which will then get you a sponsorship for the news. And then if you want to help out for free, iTunes reviews are massive, and we read those on the show. We really do appreciate them, love reading them, hearing what you guys think, whether we're doing good, we're doing bad, or we're somewhere in between. Just let us know. But where can they find you on the internet, Mr. Kyle?
You can find me on Twitter at Kyle the Winner. Winner spelled WYNNER. Twitch is the exact same. I will probably be streaming a little bit after this.
And
what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Thornrain. I do all of my streaming over on the Blackwatch Report Twitch channel, which, depending on what's happening, I might actually be doing some spectating of my son's practice tonight for his team for his tournament this weekend. So I might stream that and just kind of try to do commentary, because I should probably practice that if I'm going to help my son, in tournaments. But you can find the show on Twitter at Blackwatch Report. You can email the show, blackwatchreport@gmail.com, and you can follow the show on Twitch. That's at twitch.tv/blackwatchreport. We record live Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Our intro music is an original piece by our very own Kyle Wynn. This has been a High Noon production. You can find all of our shows over at High Noon Podcast, and come and chat with all of the hosts on the Discord at discord.me/High Noon Podcast. And with that, Blackwatch out.